Centuries after Earth joined the vast galactic community, humans were still seen as the newcomers, primitive, scattered, and not worthy of real attention. The Galactic Accord, a powerful alliance of ancient alien civilizations, had long dismissed humanity as unorganized and barely capable of space travel. They allowed Earth to join out of courtesy, not respect. Over time, humans faded into the background, their small colonies spread thin across quiet sectors of space. That peace shattered when a strange distress signal came from the outer spiral, a region full of mining operations owned by the powerful Draxian Syndicate. The signal was brief, broken by static and strange energy pulses. At first, the Council believed it was just another pirate attack or mining accident, nothing unusual. But when they sent a recon drone to investigate, what it recorded sent fear through every chamber of the Accord. An entire Draxian colony was gone, not damaged, not overrun, but completely erased. The moons around it had been shattered, turned into fields of slow-moving stone and fire. The gravity field itself had deep scars, bent in unnatural patterns as if some unseen force had torn space itself. The station's last transmission played on a loop, desperate cries, followed by static, then a voice speaking in an old Earth. Language calm, firm, human. The audio was distorted, but one phrase stood out clearly. "This is only a warning." The Council sat in stunned silence as the message ended. Dozens of species with thousands of years of space warfare experience couldn't identify the weapon used or the energy signature left behind. No conventional ship had that kind of power. Not even the mighty fleets of the Karal Empire or the sun-swallowing destroyers of the Arkari. It wasn't just destruction, it was a message written in fire across the stars. The Draxians demanded retaliation, but no one even knew what to retaliate against. Council intelligence tried to trace the signal's origin, but it was untraceable. What made things worse was that the humans, those quiet, forgotten settlers, had gone completely silent at the same time. No transmissions, no trade routes. Not even a whisper from the Terran embassy on Galaxis Prime. This silence was not like before. It was different now, calculated, ominous. Some thought it might be pirates using human signatures to spark war. Others feared that humanity had built something in secret, something the galaxy wasn't ready for. A few ancient races remembered Earth's early warnings, how they had once begged the Accord for protection after the Mars incident only to be ignored. A young diplomat from the aquatic race of Valari leaned forward during the emergency meeting, staring at the playback of the destroyed colony. In a quiet voice, he said the word that no one else wanted to believe. Human? The chamber fell into a deeper silence. Could it really be? Could humanity, so often mocked for their weak ships and stubborn pride, be responsible for a level of destruction that rivaled the great wars of old? Some laughed nervously, others leaned forward, disturbed. The Draxian ambassador, red scales shining under the lights, hissed a warning. If the humans were responsible, there would be war. But a few older species didn't laugh. They remembered the old Earth history books, of a planet that had fought wars with sticks and then flew to the stars in a single century. They remembered how fast humans had adapted, how they had studied alien tech and reshaped it in ways even its creators hadn't imagined. The Council had always assumed humanity's weakness came from their late arrival. But what if it had been something else? What if they had simply been waiting, watching, learning in silence while the galaxy overlooked them? As the Council adjourned, the stars outside the great chamber seemed colder than before. Somewhere in the dark, something was moving. Something large, something quiet, and something with a purpose. The message wasn't random. The destruction wasn't accidental. It was planned, and the silence that followed was not fear. It was intent. Whatever force had erased the Draxian colony had left one clue, one final warning carried by a human voice. And now, with the memory of that broken message echoing in their minds, the leaders of the galaxy realized something terrifying. Humanity had returned, but not as the weak allies they once were. This time they had come as something else entirely. Far beyond the crowded trade routes and well-known stars of the galactic map, a shadow drifted in the silence of deep space, far from the eyes of curious explorers and proud empires. This shadow was not just a ship, it was a legend reborn. The ESS Leviathan, once believed to be a scrapped Terran prototype, had returned, and it was very real. Shaped like a floating fortress and blacker than the void around it, the Leviathan moved without sound, its surface absorbing light like a cloak of invisibility. Few had ever seen it, and even fewer lived to speak about it. Built in secret, recommissioned. After the Mars colony was destroyed in what was supposed to be a peaceful treaty signing, this ship had been Earth's answer to a galaxy that refused to protect it. Where once humans had asked for help and been ignored, now they had chosen a different path, one that spoke not with diplomacy but with silent power and unmatched technology. At its helm was Commander Arden Wolf, a name spoken in whispers among Terran veterans and buried in redacted war records across dozens of systems. Wolf had disappeared after the Mars betrayal, believed dead or missing, but here he stood again, leading a ghost ship on a mission that no one fully understood, except that it had already begun to change everything. The Leviathan was not a vessel of war like those built by alien races. It was something different, something terrifying in its simplicity and precision. It didn't need fleets to protect it, didn't need allies to support it. It was built to stand alone and win. Its weapons were beyond imagination. Massive kinetic orbital cannons that launched solid projectiles at speeds rivaling light, each one capable of breaking moons in half. Energy shields that didn't just block attacks, but reflected them back. With twice the force, bending the rules of physics as the galaxy understood them, and most dangerously, an artificial intelligence core called Spectre, able to process battlefield data faster than any alien war AI, predicting enemy moves before they were made. No one had ever seen it in action until now. But whispers were already spreading from the edge of Accord space, of fleets going dark, of ships torn apart in seconds, of dread filling the hearts of even the bravest commanders. The galaxy was watching, though it did not know what it was seeing. They only knew one thing. The Leviathan had entered neutral territory, the space no one claimed and everyone feared. Once a lawless zone of pirates and forgotten outposts, it was now silent. Entire regions had gone dark, not from invasion, but from something worse, disappearance. There were no bodies, no wreckage, no escape signals. Just silence. Some thought it was a new alien race making a move. Others suspected rogue AIs. But a few, especially those who had once laughed at Earth's weakness, now feared the truth. The Terrans had done what no one expected. They had vanished, for decades said nothing, revealed nothing, and then returned not with peace but with a single ship that defied everything known about space warfare. Commander Wolf, standing in the Leviathan's dark bridge, watched stars pass slowly across the glass, his expression calm but cold. He wasn't here to start a war, but to make sure the next one never began against Earth. His mission was one of deterrence, not destruction. But if challenged, he would not hesitate. He carried the weight of Mars on his shoulders, the memory of broken promises and the lives of every colonist who died waiting for help that never came. The crew under him were handpicked, silent professionals, trained for missions no one else would take. They worked without need for orders, understanding the ship as an extension of themselves. Most of them had lost something to the galaxy's ignorance, a family, a colony, a future. Now, they were the sword in the dark. Above all of them, the ship's AI, Spectre, ran simulations in silence, always watching, always preparing. The Leviathan didn't speak through open channels. It didn't broadcast warnings, it didn't answer when hailed, it simply appeared. And when it did, something disappeared. In the great halls of the Galactic Accord, the name Leviathan was now being spoken in meetings once filled with talk of trade and peace. The old empires were nervous, sending scouts and fleets, yet none returned. Some wanted to strike it first, but others warned that doing so might wake something even worse. As panic grew, no one could understand how humans had hidden such a project for so long. Earth had always seemed disorganized, too focused on internal problems. But perhaps that had been the plan all along, to let the galaxy believe they were weak while building their weapon in silence. Now the question hung in every mind. If Earth could build one Leviathan, could they build more? And if so, what did humanity want? No one had answers. Only silence, only fear, and only the dark shape of a ship that should not exist, drifting on the edge of known space, rewriting the balance of power with every quiet step it took forward. The halls of the Galactic Accord echoed with tension as news of the Leviathan's movements reached every corner of known space. What started as whispers of a powerful unknown ship soon turned into undeniable proof that Earth, long dismissed as slow, scattered, and weak, had returned in a form none could have imagined. Panic moved like wildfire. Empires that once scoffed at humanity now scrambled their fleets, activating ancient defense protocols not used since the Great Nebula Wars. Messages were sent to the Leviathan in every known language, coded and clear, peaceful and commanding, but all received the same response: silence. The dreadnought floated onward, unbothered, unstoppable. The council met in emergency session, members of every species arguing, demanding answers no one had. They needed to act before fear became chaos, so they turned to the Varnathi, a proud race of military minds known for winning battles before they even began. Their fleets were unmatched in strategy and precision. If anyone could stop the Leviathan without igniting a war, it was them. The Varnathi accepted the mission, not with caution, but confidence. They believed this would be a quick lesson to put Earth back in its place. 3 full battle groups were dispatched, equipped with advanced shielding, gravity-nullifying torpedoes, and stealth drones. But what they expected to be a controlled interception turned into a ghost story. Within minutes of encountering the Leviathan, all 3 fleets went dark. No distress signals, no black box recordings, just silence and drifting debris. What few wrecks were recovered were fused at the molecular level, as if reality itself had been sliced and burned. The Varnathi, for all their pride, could say nothing. Their defeat was so complete that it shattered the illusion of safety the Accord had always believed in. The Council had no more illusions either. Earth was no longer a minor player. It was a storm wrapped in a ship, and it had just rewritten the rules. With no other option, they voted to label Earth a Class Z threat, a title only ever used to describe apocalyptic events like rogue black holes or the awakening of long-dead star beasts. Yet this time, the threat wasn't cosmic. It was human. While most council members pushed for more fleets, more weapons, and more fear-driven planning, one voice stood alone, soft but firm. Ambassador Sorel of the Nalari species, a quiet and thoughtful pacifist known for mediating long conflicts without firing a shot, believed violence would only bring more destruction. He argued that the Leviathan had not attacked civilians or declared war. It had only responded to what Earth saw as betrayal. Perhaps, he said, humanity had not come to conquer, but to be heard, finally, truly heard. His words were met with doubt, even mockery, but Sorel stood by his belief. He asked permission to approach the Leviathan alone, with no fleet, no weapons, only an open signal and a translator drone. The council hesitated, fearing they would lose yet another ambassador, to silence but eventually agreed, having nothing else left to try. So Sorel set out in a small diplomatic vessel, designed more for conversation than defense, and guided it toward the last known path of the Leviathan. As he traveled through the dark and empty sectors now marked as dead zones, he saw signs of the dreadnought's presence. Scattered ships abandoned in perfect condition, warning beacons untouched but blinking red, and the eerie feeling that something immense had passed through space without leaving a trace of itself behind. Finally, after days of silence, his sensors detected a mass so large it caused nearby star readings to bend. The ESS Leviathan, dark and quiet, loomed ahead like a forgotten god. No weapons powered up, no defense drones moved. It simply hovered, watching. Sorel sent his message, peaceful, respectful, asking only for conversation. For hours, There was no reply. Then suddenly his ship was pulled forward, not violently but gently, as if by unseen hands guiding him closer. A docking bay opened, silent and lit by a cold blue glow. Surreal, heart racing, stepped aboard the most feared ship in the galaxy. Inside, the Leviathan was not what he expected. It was quiet, almost solemn. No alarms, no war drums, just cold corridors and precise engineering. And at the heart of it, Commander Arden Wolf standing tall, dressed not in armor but in a simple Terran uniform, eyes sharp but not cruel. Sorel bowed slightly, introduced himself, and waited. Wolf studied him for a moment before nodding, his voice calm, his words careful. He welcomed Sorel not as an enemy, but as the first to listen. Around them the ship seemed to breathe, its AI, Spectre, watching silently, always alert. Sorel realized then that the Leviathan was more than a weapon. It was a shield built in anger, shaped by loss and guided by purpose. He understood that humanity had not returned to conquer, but to ensure it was never ignored again. But could peace still be possible? That answer, Sorel knew, would depend not just on Earth, but on whether the galaxy was ready to see the humans not as a threat, but as equals who had simply grown tired of being overlooked. As Sorel walked through the heart of the Leviathan, he felt the weight of more than steel and silence pressing around him. He felt the burden of an entire planet's pain, a story written not in books but in scars, in silence, and in the shape of a ship that had become Earth's final voice. The lights inside the vessel glowed cold and pale, casting long shadows against the polished walls. There were no loud commands, no marching soldiers, only focused eyes and quiet movements. The crew, though few, moved with precision and calm, not like conquerors but like those who had prepared for this moment, not out of ambition but necessity. Commander Arden Wolf led Sorel through the Leviathan's central command deck, where vast displays showed star charts, intercepted signals, and fragments of Earth's history. Colonies lost, cries for help ignored, trade agreements violated, and peace missions that ended in betrayal. Sorel stood in silence watching old footage of Earth's ambassadors being turned away, their voices drowned by laughter, their documents marked unread. He had studied Earth before, but now, standing here, surrounded by the quiet fury of a people who had endured more than anyone knew, he finally understood. Earth had not built the Leviathan to wage war. It had built it to survive a galaxy that had treated them as less than equal, less than important, perhaps even less than worthy. Wolf spoke not with anger, but with a quiet strength that carried the weight of generations. He explained how Earth's rise through the stars had been marked by hardship and betrayal, how when the Martian colony was attacked during a peace negotiation, Earth waited for justice that never came. The accord offered apologies, but no protection. Earth's colonies begged for trade routes but were taxed beyond reason. Time after time, treaties were broken, aid was denied, and each time Earth was told to wait, to be patient, to understand their place. But now, Wolf said, Earth had found its voice, and that voice was the Leviathan. It was not here to destroy, but to speak louder than Earth ever had before. We begged for peace, Wolf said, turning toward Sorel, his voice calm and steady. You gave us silence, so we made ourselves impossible to ignore. Sorel felt no threat in Wolf's tone, only truth. He saw now that the galaxy's greatest mistake had not been underestimating Earth's strength, but ignoring its will. The Leviathan wasn't just a ship. It was a message written in engines and armor, a promise that Earth would no longer wait, to be respected. Still, Sorel believed in peace. He had seen enough in the past to know that even the deepest wounds could heal if the right words were spoken. With care, he offered Wolf a proposal. Earth would stand down, and the Leviathan would retreat from the neutral zones, but only if the Accord agreed to three things. First, Earth must be recognized as a fully sovereign power, with equal standing among all Accord members, no longer seen as a junior voice to be ignored. Second, Earth's colonies must be protected under interstellar law, with trade routes secured, and defense rights granted, so no more lives would be lost in helpless waiting. And third, The interplanetary law, written long ago by the oldest races, must be revised to end the quiet oppression of new civilizations, allowing younger planets to grow without being chained by the rules of those who came before. Wolf listened, without interruption, his eyes steady, but Sorel sensed the shift. For the first time there was a space where peace could live, a place between silence and fire. The Leviathan's AI, Spectre, confirmed the proposal had been logged and transmitted to Earth's High Command. Sorel was invited to stay aboard the ship while Earth reviewed the offer. During those quiet hours, he walked the corridors, spoke with engineers and navigators, and heard the same story repeated in different voices, people who had once dreamed of peace, who had seen it denied, and who now wore their silence like armor. But none of them spoke of revenge. They spoke of balance, of being heard, of no longer living under the shadow of others. When the response finally came, Sorel stood once more before Wolf. Earth had accepted the proposal, but with one condition. If the Accord failed to act on its promises, the Leviathan would not return to hiding. It would remain where it could, be seen. A silent reminder that Earth would not be ignored again. Sorel nodded. He understood. As he left the Leviathan and returned to his small vessel, the great battleship closed its docking bay behind him, then vanished slowly into the stars, once more silent, watching, waiting. And though it fired no weapons that day, its message had already struck the heart of every leader in the galaxy. Earth had risen, not to rule, but to be respected. And now, the galaxy had a choice to make. Above the heart of the galaxy, where the towering spires of the Accord Assembly pierced the clouds of a planet bathed in golden light, the ESS Leviathan floated in complete silence, casting a massive shadow over everything below. Its presence alone was enough to stop every fleet from moving, every defense system from activating, and every leader from speaking without care. It did not fire. It did not threaten. It only hovered, watching, patient, and steady. But everyone knew what it meant. The message was clear. This was not a request. It was history rewriting itself in real time. Inside the Grand Assembly Chamber, filled with delegates from 100 worlds, the air was tense. Ancient races who had ruled unchallenged for thousands of years now sat in stillness, their eyes drifting to the projection of the Leviathan as it remained poised in low orbit, unmoving, a quiet titan holding the entire Accord in check. Votes were cast one by one, some in fear, some in guilt, and a few in reluctant respect. And when the final vote was tallied, the announcement echoed across the stars. Earth was now a founding-tier civilization, granted equal status alongside the oldest and most powerful empires in the galaxy. No longer the newcomer, no longer the forgotten world on the edge of the star map. Humanity had claimed its place not by asking, but by proving. The galaxy shifted in that moment. Old doctrines that had stood untouched for millennia were suddenly questioned. War colleges on distant planets began studying human strategies, trying to understand how a civilization once mocked for its chaos and infighting had produced a single ship that made entire navies vanish. The name Wolf became a legend, whispered in training halls, written into new manuals, analyzed in silence. Not as a warmonger, but as a strategist who understood that true power is not in destruction, but in restraint, backed by the ability to act if pushed too far. On trade worlds and mining moons, children now played games with plastic dreadnoughts, pretending to be the humans who once made the galaxy freeze in fear. Some acted as Wolf, giving orders with calm certainty, while others played as the Leviathan itself, slow, quiet, and unstoppable. What once was a forgotten world had become a symbol of what could happen when silence is broken with purpose. On Earth, people did not celebrate with loud parades or grand speeches. They watched the broadcasts quietly, knowing that their journey had come at a cost no song could describe. Families remembered lost colonies. Veterans stared at the stars, recalling friends who had died waiting for help that never came. And yet, for the first time in generations, they felt something rare and powerful: dignity restored. The galaxy had heard them now, not through protests or petitions, but through a presence so strong it could not be ignored. The Leviathan, its mission complete for now, pulled back from the assembly planet without a sound. No escorts, no announcement. It simply drifted into the darkness beyond the star lanes, returning to the edge of known space where maps became blank and names turned into myths. There in the endless void it remained, a silent guardian, not watching out of anger, but out of understanding. Commander Wolf sat in his private quarters, looking at an old photograph of Earth's first colony ship. He knew that the galaxy might one day forget again, that fear would fade and old habits would return. But he also knew that Earth would never be silent again. They had learned their lesson the hard way, that respect must be earned, that peace must be protected, and that sometimes a message must be written in the language others understand. Action. Far away, in the same dark region where the first warning had been sent, a new outpost quietly came online, bearing the symbol of the Accord and Earth side by side. It was not a fortress nor a station of war, but a place for diplomacy, where even the smallest voices could be heard. Inspired by Cyril's mission and Wolf's message, the galaxy began to change, not instantly, not perfectly, but slowly, with purpose. The interplanetary law was rewritten, giving new civilizations the right to grow without fear. Colonies once ignored were given defense charters. Trade routes were balanced to prevent exploitation. And though the changes came with debate and resistance, one constant reminder kept the process moving. The Leviathan still existed. It was out there in the void, invisible but unforgettable, and its presence alone kept the scales of power steady. No one knew when or if it would return, but all knew that should the need arise, Earth would be ready, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to be heard. And so, beneath the stars now glowing a little brighter, with old wounds slowly healing and new promises being made, the galaxy moved forward, forever changed by the day humanity rose in silence, spoke without words, and made the universe listen.